Chest.
There we go. Now I hear everyone in the audience hears us too. All right, go ahead. Give me a check.
Wonderful.
Yeah, you're good, Jeff.
Good.
Can you hear this?
All right, boys and girls out there in Candyland, we are going live and direct to you guys when I pot this music on down, and we're going to get into the attitude for gratitude. And I just heard a weird little echo. No way. Oh, that's me hitting my little mic stand. That's because we have such great sound over here at the Attitude Podcast with professional EQ wizards in the house. Welcome back, everybody, to the Attitude for Gratitude weekly podcast. First and foremost, I want everyone to know that, oh, you can't hear nothing. Let's, could that be A, B, or C, or D?
Now I can.
There we go. We're still fine-tuning things, and that's why I've got engineer extravaganza in the house. If audience, anyone out there in audience land, if we have some issues, if you are hearing us, or if anything's not coming through, please let me know. You guys will be the first and foremost that can let me know these things. And I'm counting on you guys to keep me in the loop on the way this show sounds.
How about if they have issues with what we're talking about?
Then they can go get, they can deal with it. Maybe they can learn.
They could actually text us, can't they?
They can eventually, they can call in. We can have call-ins now.
Well, then we could get some real life participation.
Yes. They can message us on here. Okay. They can message me directly, or we will eventually get you guys the link that you can call us directly and be live on the show with us. I did not want to incorporate that yet until I figure out this new system, because once I have this new system figured out, then I will take on all the other stuff. But boys, you know what the audience gets to hear now? That, and your guys' favorite for your ego. Yay. Yeah, we have like sound buttons. All that good jazz. Okay. Sorry, audience, and thank you for bearing along with us. As I always say, you know, mental health is real. If anyone's out there struggling, please reach out. I'm going to put my number here, and if you just need someone to talk to or whatever the case is, please reach out to me. Please get to a meeting. Get to a doctor, do whatever it takes for yourself if you are struggling with some mental health or you're having some negative thoughts. Just, you're worth the fight. I tell you guys every week, you're worth it. So if you haven't been told that someone loves you, let me be the first today to tell you I love you, okay? You are loved from the 2218 Attitude for Gratitude weekly podcast. So let's talk about it. Every month now, 2218 is incorporating dances. And this next one coming up is the Be My Valentine Day, February 11th. So that's coming up, boys and girls. Saturday, February 11th from 9 p.m. till midnight here at 2218. Do we need to turn you down a little?
No, it seems like it's good.
Okay. Because just let me know. I think I got that figured out, which ones I can turn up or turn down. It is a $5 donation at the door. No drugs or alcohol on the property, please. But all are welcome. Come on down. Check it out. And we also have our Saturday night speaker meetings every Saturday. Come tell your recovery story. There's a sign-up sheet at the front door at that desk where you see our lovely volunteers sitting there and greeting you as you come in the door. Requirements are 1 year sobriety, have a sponsor, service work experience. How will your experience, strength, and hope help a struggling alcoholic or addict? That's what we ask. Come on in. There's a Zoom link for those meetings or for that speaker meeting. If anyone's interested, let me know and I will put that link up. But yeah, we've got quite a few people already signed up. They leave 2 spots a month open for people that sign up. So please come sign up and be part of that show, that day, that meeting, that open speaker meeting. The Alano Society of Minneapolis does have a noon meeting every day here. Do not think that there is not one, because there is a noon meeting every day at 2218. It's called High Noon. It is an open mixed AA meeting that takes place every day at noon, alongside all the other meetings that 2218 holds. There's all different types of fellowships that are held here at the Alano Club. So come on down, check it out. There's I believe you can find it online through their Facebook, on their website page. If you have questions about specific meetings, feel free to reach out to me. like I get my guests, I will get my phone number up there so all can reach out to me with any private questions about anything. If you're curious about specific meetings, the name of meetings, or if it's an open, a mixed, an alcoholic, an addict, or Narcotics Anonymous, or CMA, whatever the case is, feel free to reach out and ask me. Alano Society Minneapolis 2023 board meeting elections are coming up. So there's 4 open positions. Come sign up and get your name on the ballot before the cutoff of January 3rd. Well, boys and girls, just be a member and you can get your votes in for this. You should have been advertising quite a bit more prior to this. And finally, we talk about this every year. It's one of the big to-dos here at 2218, and that would be the Ride for Recovery. We are talking about it earlier than normal for the simple fact that we're already getting things going with this. So we always want to make it real clear that volunteers are needed. If you're okay and you're up for volunteering, please come on down, check it out. I'm going to run down some of the information about it real quick. It's as of now, and everything's subject to change because we have got to jump on it earlier than normal. We have things that pop up and more information that's going to be coming. So we start at St. Paul Harley on our motorbikes. From 8 to 9:30, we have a breakfast where Brad is cooking up some good old pancakes, and I don't know if we did sausage patties last year, but I'll be doing the show from there again. I believe I did it there last year, Tad the previous year, and we always have the podcast down there before the guys all take off. So the other thing about that is you don't have to ride a motorcycle to be part of this day at all. Matter of fact, I didn't go on the ride last year, and I own 2 bikes. So just to let anyone know, like, everyone's welcome to this. We get a discount down at the St. Paul Harley. It's a good time. So the day kicks off at 8 a.m. at St. Paul Harley. There's a road guard meeting at around 9 o'clock with John and Dan. 9:45 is the riders meeting, and then the ride leaves at 10 a.m. And I believe they all back here at the club somewhere around noonish or 1. Not 100% sure. I'll talk to probably Dan about that when they do the dry run. That day looks as such. Noon kickoff, live music all day with Michael Pop coordinating everything. We got refreshments, the root beer, the Johnny Pops, ice cream, popcorn, root beer floats, all that good jazz. We got a 1 o'clock hot dog or sliders with chips and cookies. We're selling all that stuff at the kitchen window. 1 p.m. silent auction. Just like before, down in the auditorium, we got tons and tons of stuff that gets donated or purchased, and then we do silent auction stuff. And speaking of that, if anyone's looking to be part of that or wants to give to the club for any of that silent auction stuff, you can reach out to me. You can reach out directly through the message and the Alano website. I will put that link up here in a second as well. But it definitely, the club could use the help on any aspects of this. Anyone who wants to come down and volunteer and be part of it, come on down. You're more than welcome. We need everything from security to booth volunteers, and just come show up. 5 o'clock barbecue, 6 p.m. silent auction closes. We got speakers at 6:30. We got 7 p.m. medallions. After medallions, announcement, raffle winners, spot silent auction winners. Like I said, a lot of this is subject to change, and I just wanted to get that kind of out there. I can tell you this much. We did a dunk tank last year. There was about 5 of us that were part of that. I took last place, but I was still able to raise like $100 and something. So that just shows you, like, we've got people that everyone sells tickets on behalf of us, and I was the guy promoting the podcast, and they sold tickets on my behalf. I don't know what they were, $2 or something, but lots of tickets for that. And from over at Will Work, he ended up having the most tickets sold, but there was tons and tons of people that took part in that. So we're looking for ideas of things like that. So I think we're having a dunk tank again, but if anyone has ideas about that, reach out, let me know. We're open to any of that stuff. So I think that's enough for advertising. That's 7 minutes of blabbing. if you are able to come on down and give some time, come on down the front desk, be a volunteer down here at 2218. If you want to become a member, you can do that as well. I'm going to have, not next week, but the following week, I got a couple of the people that do service work on the show talking about service work here at the club. And they're a lively group. If you've ever heard Missy speak, I strongly suggest you tune in for that show. She's a riot, and she's going to be on the show talking about what volunteering here at the club does for her and her recovery. Other than that, we've got Rick and Jesse in the house, our returning guests, our top-rated returning top fans guests. Yay! Yeah. See? That's for you guys. Huh?
I still want to know how you come in last in the dunk tank competition.
I didn't ever. Well, let's see. Bob was wearing a thong and a tutu. Curtis was wearing a pair of Speedos and no shirt. And Brad was wearing like this duck outfit. And Paul's Paul. So I just didn't have the what is that, bravado? Or I wasn't dressed up. I wasn't dressed. I think I was walking around in underwear and a tank top or something. And I'm not a good sight. So that's how I came in last.
That's all the more reason to put you into the water.
I didn't, you know what? And I ended up going last where I don't know what I was thinking. I'm sitting in there in this, I don't know, I want to get into it. But yeah, 5 gross old men went before me and then I'm dunked into their water. Ugh. And they're all wearing Speedos and thongs and I don't know what I was thinking. So I'll be going first
I
this
wasn't
year.
thinking about that until you said something.
Yeah, I was when I was choking on mouthfuls of water and ugh. I'll tell you what. You know what I got for last place was a bottle of syrup. They brought us all up on stage and they gave away first place. Paul got a jersey and I don't know, someone got like this whittled sign and all the way down to me who got a bottle of syrup. Whatever. I didn't advertise. We didn't advertise on the show. I was advertising on behalf of these are excuses now. It's because I just didn't I don't know. I didn't sell myself enough like them boys. Why didn't I wear a tutu and thong? That's why I lost. That's why, right there. Oh, okay. Well, you asked. I'm telling. Let's see here. Where we go from here, boys? I'm trying to get this the looped pictures up, and we got them. Just there at the building. Now they can see everything. Rick and Jesse are here. Boys, want to introduce yourselves?
I'm Jesse. I'm an alcoholic.
Hey, Jesse.
And I'm Rick.
Welcome back.
And I might be an alcoholic.
Well, something in that book that as a chapter, or I'm not going to.
No question about it.
We got alcoholics in the house tonight. Returning guest. This would be their 15th time on the show in the past 3 years. I think we did the numbers last week after you left, or last year. And we're going to run it down kind of like we did last year. We're going to incorporate some more audience questions for these boys, but we go through the steps. Each month we take on a step a month, and then I don't know, like I said, we got certain questions I've been trying to spread out. I was thinking we'd do that.
What do you got?
Well, last week, what did we girls, and I don't know, I'll pull up my notes. I was thinking we get into step 2, and if there's time after, that's when that'll give me time to get them all prepped and ready for you guys.
Do we get some questions as we're going?
Yeah, when they pop, and that's the thing, is it's a little bit better with the people interacting. Before I was not, I wasn't knowledgeable enough to figure all that out with the YouTube questions. Now I have them all linked together because I upgraded our stream service.
In other words, yes.
The answer is yes. I thought I just
yes.
Yeah.
That's me, boys. You know how I am. So yes, anyone who wants to ask our audience or our guest questions, you can write it on whatever you're listening to this on, or you can message me directly. My phone number's up there as always, and I will make sure that our guests get those questions. In the past, we weren't doing it as much, and that's just because I wasn't getting the information from one of the streaming services. So now I get it all. 612-791-942. All right. The number's up there. What is step 2?
Step 2, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity.
Where do we start talking about that in the, start reading about that in the big book?
Well, here, let me read a little bit here.
Okay.
I'm in We Agnostics.
Okay.
What's the word agnostic mean? Well, I looked up, actually, from what I read, the word agnostic came from Aldous Huxley. He, apparently, the turn of the last century, and it means I don't know. The root of the word is gnosis, which means knowing. Agnostic means I don't know. So they wrote a chapter 4, designated to the guy who doesn't know, not necessarily an atheist, might be just agnostic. He doesn't know, he's not sure. So they spent a whole chapter talking about this, couple things. This is very difficult for me. You can hear as a militant atheist. And I do everything with enthusiasm, so I was just a pain to anybody who was in any way religious. I really disliked them. It's kind of odd because I just thought right now, why did I dislike them so much? I must have felt threatened.
A fear situation?
Well, I must have been threatened by, my belief must have been threatened by them in some way, because I really reacted with anger toward them. And I was arrogant in the sense of, if a Jehovah's Witness came to the door, I'd invite them in. Come on in, we'll talk. And then I'd start slandering them. And I was mean, and I was aggressive. And I want to tell you something that is really true. These were kind, loving people.
Yeah.
Coming to carry a message of hope and love to a madman. And I was abusive, and I'm not proud of that.
I guess we look back and some of us chuckle when we hear that.
Yeah.
But you're right. They were coming with a loving heart.
Oh yeah. And here I am. I'm abusive, and I'm dead serious when I tell you they were trying to get away from me in no time. Running down the block after a few minutes with me, and I was just aggressive and mean-spirited with it. So it's not something I'm proud of, but it's just where I was at. So when I came into AA and I start reading all this God stuff, this was very difficult for me. And the other thing that was easy, and it was difficult. It was easy for me to stay sober because alcohol and drugs were shut off. But so I didn't look at AA as a desperation program. Now, I don't know why I was so interested in it, but I was drawn to it, probably because I saw it work for my dad, but I disliked my dad. So it's kind of odd when I think about because alcohol and drugs were shut off because of an experience, a spiritual experience I had as an atheist, and I was still an atheist at the end of it. So, but it shut off the alcohol and drugs when I said I'll do anything,
Right.
not to live this way. I'm dead serious. I'll do anything. I'm just crying out, sick of myself. So I had that experience. I rejected it. I didn't like it, but I had a big, bright light experience like Bill. And alcohol, drugs, and what's more important, the whole lifestyle, the illegal stuff, because I was doing a lot of illegal stuff, in and out of jails all my life, in and out of courtrooms. it was all shut off. Just like I turned around and went in a different direction and never looked back.
And we shared about this before. Was this was before getting in the rooms? You had
I
this
was 3
experience.
weeks sober in a treatment center when that happened.
And it's like a light switch.
Yeah, just like a light switch. Somebody shut it off. So why would I even come into AA? Well, that's kind of interesting too. It's just like I just knew, I just loved the idea of the fellowship and the relationships with men. When I was drinking, I was a man's man, not we weren't. It's not that I had anything against women, but we were just guys standing around the keg,
Right.
putting each other down, drinking,
Right,
and
right.
fighting halfway through the keg. That's the sort of the mentality of us. And all the guys I drank, most of them were older than me, a couple years older than I am. I hung around with older people. It's getting harder to do that, by the way.
Yeah. Well, that's gravity and time.
They're dying off on me. I used to be the youngest all the time. Now I'm finding out I'm the oldest all the time. But anyway, so I came into AA, and I really didn't have a need to stay sober from AA. But I was drawn for some other reason. Now, I've been drawn to a lot of things along the way without really understanding what it is. I've come to realize I think it's intuition.
Intuition.
Yeah, yeah. I'm drawn to something. For example, I was drawn to learn to meditate.
Okay.
Okay. I wasn't going to pray, obviously, with the 11th step. Yet the 11th step was one of the first steps I worked. How would you work that one? Well, I'm telling you, alcohol was gone, so step 1 was an easy one. That was a no-brainer. But I could not come to believe, so I'm not going to pray, so I'm looking for opportunities to meditate.
Meditate.
That looked reasonable.
Right.
Okay. Steps 2 did not at all. Nothing about them looked like I could consider. But I was interested in the big book. And the old timers here at the club, now we're talking 35 years ago, they were all 20, 30-year guys when I walked in here. I was a young guy at 35. Very few young people stayed. They just left. I don't know where they went, but they didn't stay here at the club. I was one of the few that stuck around.
Stuck.
Yeah. And I loved the old timers because I was already geared toward older people. You know why? There's no games.
No BS.
There's no games. They're not going to play the games. They got no interest in it. No competition, no crap from them, and that's one thing I've always respected about older people. Well, I come in here and I can't consider what they're doing, but they're talking about the big book. So I was reading the big book. And I never read anything before I got sober. I'm a guy who got thrown out of, school. My desk was in the hall in grade school. This
Yeah.
is the kind of stuff. I hadn't participated in school since I was in 3rd grade, literally. I don't say that to be funny. It's just a fact. I don't know why they passed me. They wanted me to get out of their classes, I suppose, or out of their grades. But I got passed along, but I never turned any homework in. I never read a book. I never did anything. I never did a book report. They used to ask you to do a book report. What's really odd is that's all I'm doing now, is a book report. It's funny how life is, how you end up. So I wasn't really adept at reading, but I found that it helped me if I read this to other people.
That's where you're getting most value.
That's where I got all the value, because I couldn't grasp it or retain it as long as I was just holding it and trying to retain it in my own mind. It's when I shared it with others that it started to light me up. So,
12-step stuff.
huh?
12-step stuff.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Yeah. I found that you can sit at home and read the big book and put yourself to sleep by yourself. I've done
By
that.
myself, yes.
Years and years ago, I was doing that. I
Yeah.
could get through a few pages and zonk out.
What? Yeah, that's a whole different avenue I wanted to go down. Was it that you weren't getting interested in what you're reading? Was that?
it's reflecting on what he just said. If you read it to someone else, you can retain it. I found literally that you could I could put myself to sleep sitting at home by myself reading the big book by myself. I'm not saying that's always the case, but it's very different than if you're reading it with someone
Right?
else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I ended up in this chapter, We Agnostics. Of course, I read the earlier chapters, but the first 3 chapters are really where we describe what an alcoholic is. I spent 3 chapters talking about what an alcoholic is because they didn't know in the 30s when they wrote this what an alcoholic was. They saw the effects. They saw them laying in
Right.
the doorways. But they didn't know what alcoholism actually was. Well, they spent 3 chapters telling us. It says right in the ABCs, right after how it works, the beginning of how it works. First couple pages we read in meetings. It says, A, that we were alcoholic and could not manage our own lives. B, that probably no human power could have relieved our alcoholism. And C, that God could and would if he were sought. Well, I was in a place where I just didn't care about. I mean, I was reading these first 3 chapters,
Right.
but I knew that it was over. I wasn't going to drink anymore or use drugs or live in that life. I had done an about face. I literally turned around and went in a different direction, and I never went back that other way. Never even considered it. It was gone. That guy's a gone. But I still had a lot of the old ideas intact. See,
That's what I was gonna. I didn't want to cut you off, but my question with you before you go further is: okay, no more drinking. I'm done with that. What had you sticking was the book was so interesting, or you're sick of being the horse
fellowship,
thief?
the people,
or-
the guys in this club were interesting to me. The relationships with the
Fellowship.
men were interesting.
That's kind of what got you to stick and stay.
Oh yeah, yeah. I love the relationships with the guys, just like standing around the keg or sitting at the
Okay.
bar. It's the same thing, only you're not using
Right.
and you're not trying to take advantage of each other. You're hopefully,
And it's no
in
BS.
most cases.
Like, yeah, I'd see.
And these guys are all older, so the BS wasn't there.
Right.
All the games weren't there. All
Okay.
the competition. So I was interested in a lot of aspects of without even now. Wasn't conscious of everything I'm telling you.
Right, without knowing it.
I can look back on this and I can see from years later. In fact, it's kind of interesting because as I talk about these things, I start to get ideas and thoughts about things that I
Right.
never thought about. So I'm in We Agnostics, and a little bit here, up and talk, whatever you want to do.
What
don't
page
have
are you
to-
on?
I'm on page 44 in the Alcoholics Anonymous
Okay.
book. It's titled We Agnostics. It says, in the preceding chapters, you have learned something of alcoholism. So that's the first 3 chapters in the book.
The preceding chapters.
Yeah. We hope we have made clear the distinction between the alcoholic and the non-alcoholic. If when you honestly want to, you find you cannot quit entirely, or if when drinking you have little control over the amount you take, you are probably alcoholic. If that be the case, you may be from an illness which only a spiritual experience will conquer. Now, it had already been conquered for me. 3 weeks sober, I'll do anything. It was gone. I didn't understand that when I read that. When I read that right now, and I haven't read this chapter for quite a while, this is exactly what happened to me. I was suffering from an illness which only a spiritual experience will conquer, yet I didn't believe in God. In fact, I actively was against it.
From the outside listening in, it's like that's almost sounds like oxymoronic in a way. Like how does that even correlate? But you already explained it. You know, you found meditation, but you're being told that you have to have a higher power.
But I didn't find meditation until 6 months later, after I got sober.
oh, I thought it was 3 weeks in.
No,
No,
that's
when
when
you
I
had
had
your-
that
okay,
spiritual
okay.
experience. See,
So apparently, belief must not be necessary to have a spiritual experience.
Head's gonna tell us
he's
with
gonna
what
wait
we're
till
hearing.
wait till we get into this a little bit, because
All
there's
right.
some places in here where he says that, and it's amazing because as I was reading the Big Book and looking back at my experiences, and I've done this all along, I remember thinking at one point, years and years ago, am I just making my experiences up to fit the Big Book? Or is it actually inducing the same experience because I was taking the actions?
It's like the chicken and the egg almost.
Yeah. Well, I know today that the process will induce the same experience, but I remember looking at it thinking, am I just making this up, trying to BS myself into belief? No, it was actually happening to me exactly the way they wrote it. That's fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah, that could even be the case. That they could write a book that told my story,
Prior to you,
and I'd
having
already
your
had
story.
the
Yeah.
experience of it, so I thought, wow, that's kind of weird. It says, to one who feels he is an atheist or agnostic, such an experience seems impossible. But to continue as he is means disaster, especially if he is an alcoholic of the hopeless variety. And this is a great line. To be doomed to an alcoholic death or to live on a spiritual basis are not always easy alternatives to face. Wow. Live on a spiritual basis or die an alcoholic death.
Doomed.
That's not, is that a hard decision? It is for a guy who hates religious ideas and is so rebellious against them. But it isn't so difficult. Now think about this. Now this is written by the first 100 people, okay? They were only at the longest sobriety 4 years. They published this in 39. So Bill only had 3 years experiences, and there were only a few people with him. He said that it isn't so difficult. About half our original fellowship were exactly that type. Now think about that. 4 years into this, half of the original fellowship still didn't believe. Yet they wrote this
They
book.
wrote this.
And they were sober.
And they were sober. Some were in and out, and
Right.
Isn't that an interesting idea? Yeah. To be doomed to an alcoholic death or to live on a spiritual basis are not easy, not always easy alternatives to face. I was in Mazatlan, Mexico, and I'm going to be going to Mexico again on next Wednesday.
You guys do that annually, right? You
I
that-
do. I
you
don't
do
know.
it.
Some people come along with regularly, some don't. This time it's just two of us
Yeah.
going. But that I know of anyway. But I was in Mazatlan and I met a guy named Morris, and Morris was an alcoholic and they called him Mauricio. He was a guy about my age. I was probably in my 50s, early 50s at the time, maybe late 40s. And him and I connected in the meetings. Now, I'm only there for a week at a time,
Right.
but he and I just had a connection. You can just feel that with some people. It happens. Well, the next year when I went down there, he was drinking. And people in AA loved him. He was a lovable guy. But he was an atheist, and he had all that BS going on that I had, But who cares, if I didn't care. Wasn't trying to convert him into nothing.
Right.
I'm just friends with him, And he's drinking that year, and everybody wants me to
Go
try and
fix him.
find him and go fix him, Well, I don't even know where he is. Nobody seems to know where he is. So the next year I go down there, and he happens to be living in a very wealthy Mexican who used to come to the meetings. His name was Sergio. Sergio was an architect, and he had made a lot of money. He was a good man, just a decent guy. And he was living in one of Sergio's buildings, right on the ocean, overlooking the edge of the ocean. It was a little tiny apartment, but it was right on. I mean, it was. So I go there with a guy I'm sponsoring. His name's Francisco, and we go there just to see him because we found out. And Sergio me to go fix him. That was the attitude, you know. Go to get him back to that kind of crap.
Yeah, yeah.
See, but that's not why I went. I went there to see
He's
him.
your buddy.
I'm sober a long time
Right.
at this point. I don't, you know. So I go to see. I knock on the door, and a beautiful senorita answers the door. Francisco and I are standing there looking at her. I thought, okay. Come walking in, straight in. There's a little kitchen table. It's not a big place. It's probably one bedroom and just a little eating area and stuff. Kitchen connected. The senorita's at the kitchen area doing dishes or whatever she was doing, and Morris is sitting there, facing us as we walk in. So he sees us coming in. He knows me,
Right.
and we sit down and we start to talk. And he's drinking. He's
Yeah.
half in the bag,
Yeah.
you know. But he's a congenial guy, you know. He's not mean, and I wasn't going to try and tell him anything. So we just start to talk. And the moon, it's interesting because I'll never forget the scene. It's like you're sitting there and the window's behind you here. Well, that's the way it was in Mazatlan. And I can see
the beautiful-
the moon. It's a big moon and it's shining off of the ocean, reflecting off. It's just a beautiful scene. Beautiful night. Weather's perfect there. And I looked at Morris and I said, you know, Morris, and we talked a little bit. And I said, you know, Morris, because he says to me, he says, you know, I got this beautiful place to live. I got this beautiful senorita in the other room. I've got a little business going here and things. I'm doing well in most areas, but I'm miserable. I'm just miserable. And I remembered something from a meeting that I used to go to. There was something called a table mate. It was a little pamphlet like this. It was not done by AA, but it was AA quotes and
Yeah.
things. And it was well done. It was well done. And I remembered something that I read in that little booklet because it was embedded in me.
Right.
Because I'd been reading it for months. Week after week, we'd read out of this thing. And I said, Morris, look, here's your option if you're an alcoholic. I said, this is what that pamphlet said. It's either total abstinence or chronic alcoholism with all the handicaps and penalties that implies. He looks up at me and he says, can I think about it? He's still thinking about it. He never got sober. I don't know what
Really?
become of him. Yeah, he may have gone back to Ireland or something. I just don't know. Can I think about it? You see, that's the point.
That's-
You know, when I read these sentences, to be doomed to an alcoholic death or to live on a spiritual basis, because AA represented a spiritual basis to him, are not always easy alternatives to face. Can I think about it? See, he thinks there's something in between. But there is, if you're an alcoholic,
Yeah.
there is nothing in between. Either live on a spiritual basis or alcoholism with all the handicaps and penalties that
Well,
apply.
I can remember prior to finding these rooms, my head worked that way. Conniving with myself or making some deals with myself, figuring out a way to use properly. There's some way I could get around this and have a
I
good
knew I
life
couldn't
still.
do that. I knew I couldn't do that.
Yeah, my head told me that for quite some time, that there was still going to be a way I can get away with using and living a proper life.
You know what it was with me? I knew it was only a matter of time before I'd have to stop. It was only a matter of time. I knew this as a teenager sitting with my buddy Randy drinking, laughing at each other because we both had alcoholic families. We both knew that we were alcoholic. We were alcoholic. I mean, literally, we were having problems real early, physically, with me.
Knowing.
No, I
Physically
knew this
going
as a
in withdrawal.
teenager too. I knew that at some point I'd have to stop. I didn't know
Yeah,
how that was going to happen.
How far could I take it? That was my attitude.
You know, and maybe I had that too, but I'm telling you guys, maybe my thought will change over time. But looking back, I thought, you know, I'm gonna smoke weed rest of my life. I'll be able to live this light way. I can go to the bars on week. That went on well until, you know, I'm shooting heroin in the gutter someday. But it went that way for 20 years.
Now, how did I know that? intuition. I knew. I've known since I was a kid that hadn't happened yet. I just knew. I just knew certain things. I've been led all my life. Normally, I would take credit for it, clearly, because I was an atheist. When it was good, I took the credit.
That was your doing.
When it was bad,
was-
you got the
Yeah.
credit. See, that's the way I was operating. See, all my life. There's no God. Yes, there is. Me.
Right. You were
right.
your own higher power.
And I could not admit that I couldn't solve problems one way or another. I would fix things. And my
Intuition.
solutions were never good for the other guy. They were always geared toward what I wanted and what I could get. I wasn't trying to hurt you, but I could not understand that two people in a situation could both win. There had to be a loser, and it's not going to be me.
It was a bondage of self deal.
I knew this about myself at a young age. Now, if you're a good guy, you don't know that.
No, you'll just be in conflict with people and you'll be very sure that they're the reason for the conflict. If you see yourself as good in a situation or as a good guy, if that's the image you're holding in your mind of yourself and you're moving into a situation and conflict, whatever it is, there's only one conclusion. It's the other guy.
Now, how would I, it's interesting because I think most people are probably like Jesse more than like me. But I really, at 5 years old, I knew I was self-serving. I never thought of myself when I did something for someone as a good guy. I didn't think of myself as a bad guy. I just knew that I was self-serving. How could a 5-year-old know this? I remember incidents. I could tell you examples of it, but I knew I wanted something. So I was never living under this delusion that I was good. I wasn't bad. I just knew I was self-serving.
Self-serving.
That is a break that's beyond belief.
Major simplification there.
Yeah, because I come in to this program and I didn't have to back the good guy crap out. Right. I saw was self-serving. He, who thought he was good, had to back out the good guy shit and see that he had motives that were self-serving. But you
shared
can't
about stuff
see
like
that
that.
when you're a good guy.
See, that's a double layer there.
Yeah.
Yeah. To put it lightly.
Now, I want you to understand something. I don't think of myself as ahead of him. I want to tell you something that's sad about that, is I was actually not really a sociopath, but it looked that way because I didn't give a damn about the other guy. I was an atheist and I had separated myself so far away from other people that I could give myself permission to do things and not feel the conflict or pain of what I was doing. In a sense, it's almost like you don't have a conscience, but I did. I knew right from wrong, but I didn't care. I was so engulfed and I wanted what I wanted that I didn't give a damn. This is not something to be particularly proud of, but it's where I was.
And you recognize it. You bring up the word sociopath. What's the difference between what you're talking about and sociopath? No feelings?
No consideration, no sense of the other part of you. You separate yourself so far outside of God, anything spiritual joins you with others, doesn't it? The more you heal spiritually, the more you feel connected to everyone. I was so isolated in my mind that I didn't have much of a sense. A little, it was a spark there, but it was not much.
The definition for sociopath is a mental health disorder characterized by disregard for other people.
Right.
Those with antisocial personality disorder. Hey, Doc R from Vegas, thanks for checking in and supporting the show. We have a quick question. Someone brought, you mentioned something about in third grade, you stopped schooling. Maybe you got should ask it right after. How did you manage to finish school without an education after third grade?
I didn't. They sent me through. Now you got to understand. I would have graduated in 1970. I was thrown out in 1968.
Oh, okay. So
Okay.
in 10th grade.
So I got thrown out of high school. Now I hadn't participated in school at all. Skipping classes, everything, all the way through junior high. I got along with people. I wasn't a jerk. I liked older people. I could talk to them. I'd go down to the office and sit in the office rather than sit in class. I'd rather talk to the secretaries and stuff. The
You
older
sit and
people.
BS with them.
Oh yeah, and I love doing that. See,
I know I just jumped from that because I didn't want to pass up. Thank you for the question. And feel free to keep messaging me directly if you want.
now just to finish this up,
Yeah.
when I got out, I went out to build an empire. I'm going to be a big shot. The whole idea was to be a big shot, get what I want from life, and I went after it with everything I had. I did go back and get a GED. I took a GED only because I wanted to take a little bit of college classes,
And you needed that for
and I had
college.
to get into the college.
Yeah.
But I didn't do much there either because I really wasn't all that interested in what they were teaching. Not that they weren't teaching things of value, maybe in college, but I remember a song that Paul Simon sang in one of his songs. He had a lyric that says, "My lack of education hasn't hurt me none." I think Paul Simon's right in his
Well, you think? His bank account says there. Yeah. So me personally, I'm curious. And so through third grade, 10th grade, did you not learn anything but social skills at school?
I
Basically,
didn't
or-
learn any social skills at school.
Oh, you're
I learned
BSing
them
with
on the
older
street.
people. Oh,
I learned them
okay.
on the streets, you know?
No, I was
I'm
curious.
a product of standing there with my foot on a keg down at the river drinking with my buddies. That's my social skills. That's where I got them from.
And guys, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to jump from talking about sociopath to not getting education from third grade on. I just
We can move around a bit.
yeah,
That's
I
okay.
thought we could
That's
jump
all
around.
right.
Yeah. All right. So I know that in how it works, it talks about in the first few sentences that it's I should have my book here. The ones that are incapable of. And it's been worded to me that those are usually sociopaths or mental disorders or
Incapable of what?
of
Being honest?
recovering.
Being honest with themselves.
Yes.
Naturally incapable of grasping and developing a manner of living which demands rigorous honesty.
Right.
So, and that are incapable, that correlated with me that's usually sociopaths or not usually, but it's something with mental disorders or people that
Well,
just
let's
can't.
just before we go too far on that, it just says their chances are less than average. There are those too who suffer from emotional and mental, but
They too.
many of them do recover if they have the capacity to be honest. So,
So
let's
it's not a moral issue here. It's an honesty issue, which might be looked at as a moral issue too. I'm not saying it can't be, but I'm just saying that it really here. Where I was reading, now I'm on the third paragraph. He says, where it says, but it isn't so difficult. About half of our original fellowship were exactly of that type. At first, some of us tried to avoid the issue, hoping against hope we were not true alcoholics. Well, that wasn't my problem, man. I didn't care about that. But after a while, we had to face the fact that we must find a spiritual basis of life or else. We must find a spiritual basis of life or else. What does that mean? Well, most people, myself included, when I came in here, 35 years old, I thought what we're taught is you have to be good. I'm not interested in being good. I can tell you I am no more interested in being good today than I was when I was 5 years old.
You mean when they say spiritual basis, you meant they thought they're talking about being good?
Yeah, I gotta can't have sex before marriage, can't all the things. I gotta
Right.
live up to all their ideals that they set for me. See, the big book doesn't do that. They say, in the sex conduct inventory, they say, whatever our ideal turns out to be, we must be willing to grow toward it. They don't tell you what that is. Whatever it is, we must be willing to grow toward it. See, I can accept that sort of talk. But if they'd have said, this is what your ideal should be, now go grow toward it, I'd have told them to stick this book you know where. I really would have. I would not have put up with this. AA is written so well and without any, it doesn't bring your defenses up.
Yeah, it doesn't have demands.
Yeah. Yet they're just telling you, okay, so what does it mean to live on a spiritual basis?
Yes.
Well, I found out some things. Now, I'll give you an example because it's best if I talk.
Yeah.
Okay.
I can correlate best with examples.
I got a smartphone here.
Yep.
Okay? I don't understand how this phone works. I have some basic understanding. Heard from a guy who was a techie. He said, what a sponsee of mine, I knew nothing about any of the technology stuff when I got sober. We're talking 35 years ago. There wasn't much around, you know?
They even have color TVs back then? No.
No, they didn't.
Being a smart ass.
No, when
They did.
I
35 years ago
was a
they
kid,
did. Oh.
I remember when they came out. I do. I remember my sister buying the first color TV, and I was a teenager at the time.
Okay.
So I know that, I don't know. I have been told that a smartphone or any kind of computer is operating on, it's either on or off type of thing. Okay. And then there's program written about how that might look and how, but it's literally comes down to it either on or off.
Okay.
That's what I heard. I don't know if it's true. That's what I was told. So I have some very limited understanding of this cell phone, right? But I found that I can utilize it if I understand certain ideas. If I press, like if I open this thing up and I want to see the weather, there's a little button there, I push that and it shows me the weather. Well, there it is, see. Okay, if I want to go into DuckDuckGo, for example, I can hit that and then I can type stuff. Now, I understand how to utilize it. I don't understand how it works,
Okay.
but I can utilize it, see. Same with electricity. I walk in the room, I flip the lights on. I don't understand how electricity works. I have some basic knowledge, you know.
But you know.
But I flip a switch on, I know the damn lights come on if you pay the bill, okay?
Right, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
See? And believe me, there were times when they didn't come on when I flipped the switch because of my lack of paying bills. So anyway, I can utilize these things without having to understand them, correct? See what I mean? Mm-hmm. Well, it's the same with spiritual ideas. I really believed that I could take from life and gain. If I steal something, a material thing, I will have a gain.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah.
If in relationships, I'm trying to gain and get what I want. You get into the conflict with the girl or the guy, whatever the situation is, okay? And there's a idea that I want them to understand and do things and have a relationship like I think is best. Now, I thought that that's what life would be, control everything. But it wasn't working. Okay? It wasn't working. I thought I could take from life, but it wasn't working. I found out when I got sober, I took and took and took until I had nothing left. Now, why wouldn't I have something if I was taking? It doesn't make logical sense, but it's true. And I saw it through the experience. So the experience is in the big book, in the third step, is to reverse the selfishness. Selfishness takes, love gives. Okay?
Okay.
So these are basic ideas that don't always follow logic in my mind. It's true. And you find that out as you experience life. Or if you have and see, I didn't, because I was on the streets with myself and my buddies. Now, this is what I think we're talking about when he says, hoping against hope, we were not true alcohol. Okay. face the fact that we must find a spiritual basis of life or else. Well, the conflict came in my life from me not understanding certain spiritual ideas. So I was in conflict all the time. I didn't understand why I was in conflict until I started to take some inventory and looked at the selfishness and the self-centeredness. Then I realized I'm in conflict because of that stuff. See, so I had to learn and look back on my life and see all the failures of the way I was doing things. It was logical when I did what I did, but it didn't work.
Right.
And spiritual ideas work. So I have to learn a spiritual basis, which means what? I can't take advantage of you and win. I will lose if I take from life. I will gain if I give to life. That would be, to me, living on a spiritual base, not a moral code of ethics. You understand?
Yeah.
See, you could do this on day one in Alcoholics Anonymous.
I was.
Now, if you're coming in the delusion that you've been doing good deeds all your life, or you're trying to be good all your life, and it still has the same exact failures he talked, that's a little.
Well, and that's
tricky.
your story, right?
That's my story. So I have to get over the guys, the whatever you want to call it, the delusion that these were good deeds. No, I was trying to get something. I was trying to manipulate something.
But you didn't know it at the time. You knew it, but you didn't.
You couldn't identify it.
Well,
as-
these things get so overlap.
Yeah.
You know, you overlap some thoughts and ideas, and it gets hard to sort them out.
Well, we talked about this 8 months ago or 6 months ago when you brought up like good will run riot type deal. You by a homeowner by doing X, Y, and Z, not realizing you were putting another trade out to the pastures type of deal.
What do you mean by that?
Yeah, I don't remember that. story.
You were doing. I don't know the exact.
She wanted to paint the room a
Something.
color
You
that he
made
didn't
it-
think was a good idea.
Is that the story?
No, it was you. There was other trades trying to get in, and you made sure to get it done quicker. And you were thinking you were doing good by the homeowner. Well, that's what it was. You wanted to get it done in a fashionable time. Well, you ended up the homeowner had to wait 3 or 4 days because the other trade wasn't ready. But your motives were right
I
in
think
this.
you got the wrong.
This was you. I'll find the show. You said.
Okay.
I can't quote it because I don't know the exact story, and I'll find it. You watch.
If you get to the idea, I'll just work.
The
with
idea was that you thought you were doing good by getting this job done or in a fashionable time or even ahead of schedule, which left them waiting 2-3 days because the other trades weren't ready to come in yet.
it. Okay.
So they were waiting 2-3 days when, you know what, you're right. I need to re-listen to it. It was something to them effects.
Here's my point, though, here with this. It says, now I'm jumping to the next paragraph. It says, if a mere code of moral or a better philosophy of life were sufficient to overcome alcoholism, many of us would have recovered long ago. A mere code of ethics. I'm a good guy. I'm gonna.
Oh.
Isn't that an interesting
mere
way to put
code of
this?
ethics.
Okay. But we found that such codes and philosophies did not save us, no matter how much we tried. We could wish to be moral. We could wish to be philosophically comforted. In fact, we could will these things with all our might, but the needed power wasn't there. Our human resources, as marshaled by the will, were not, they failed utterly. And I'll tell you why I think they failed utterly is because they were out of harmony with love. They were based in manipulation and control and getting what I wanted. Whether I called it I'm a good guy, I'm a moral guy, I'm doing what's best for you, well, you may not think it's best for you. So I try and force things on you. You see, and you end up in conflict and with problems. So when he says, we found that such codes and philosophies did not save us, no matter how much we tried, we could wish to be moral. Well, you could lie to yourself about what that even means.
yeah.
I'm a good guy, yet I'm manipulative and controlling. We could wish to be comforted. In fact, we could will these things with all our might. but the needed power wasn't there. Why? Because I wasn't in harmony with the needed power. I was out of harmony with love. I was taking instead of giving. What if I'm delusional about being a good guy and I don't realize I'm self-serving?
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Now do you see where this is going? See?
Yeah. It
I could
can't even
even-
come down
I-
to just asking, well, what are my motives? You can't even ask that really then. Because if you're
No.
delusional about it,
You think you're right.
yeah.
And the other person will be cause of the conflict.
So the universal language of love, not even the universal language of love. I'm saying that wrong. Just doing it out of love.
Well, giving instead of trying to manipulate and take.
Here, the next sentence, lack of power, that was our dilemma. Okay, I'm not aligned with the power. Why? I'm out of harmony with the power because I'm taking instead of giving. Okay? We had to find a power by which we could live, and it had to be a power greater than ourselves, obviously. But where and how were we to find that power? Well, that's exactly what this book is about. It's made to enable you to find a power greater than yourself, which will solve your problem. That means we have written a book which we believe to be spiritual as well as moral. Now, they didn't say moral first, did they?
Spiritual.
Yeah. And it means, of course, that we are going to talk about God. Here, difficulty arises with agnostics. Ah, no kidding. You see, this is tough when you're an atheist because you feel coerced good. But that is not my journey in AA. I am not trying to be good. I have found the things in myself that have been causing me to fail in my relationships with others. It is always based in selfishness and self-centeredness. Always. For me.
And you shared
That's
earlier,
the
you knew
opposite
that.
of love. That's the opposite of giving. You can't be in harmony with God or love. It doesn't matter whether you believe in God. You could have a great belief in Jesus and God, and then you're acting to what love is, and thinking that you're actually in harmony somehow, or spiritual. I'm moral. I'm a good guy. Whoa, I couldn't.
Delusional.
Well, of course it is. Because if it was in harmony with God, it'd work.
I wanted to go back to what we read about 2 paragraphs ago. On a spiritual basis. When I heard that the first time, I'm thinking that means God. But what does that mean to you guys when they say a spiritual basis? We kind of touched on it.
Living within the constructs of what love would be, like giving instead of taking. It's selfishness is the problem because it's based in taking and getting. It's an ego trait. It's not a trait. It's a human nature at its worst.
I've had to drop some of my religious ideas, some of my philosophical ideas, because they were surrounded in good and they didn't work.
You want to hear the benefit I had? I had no religious training.
Yeah, that's a benefit.
I had
somewhat.
nothing to undo because I didn't do. First, I didn't have it. So when I got sober, all I did was start to see, if this would have been about making a moral idea and then your morals can be very different. The guy in prison has got morals, whether you believe it or not.
Yeah.
They're not your morals, but he's living by a code of morals and ethics. And they're crazy. I mean, Jeffrey Dahmer goes into the prison. What do? They don't like the case he came in on. They kill him.
Yep.
That's a morality that they're carrying.
Yeah.
You see, not my morals. So I'm really somewhat hesitant to do this from a moral perspective. And I think Bill had this same problem because when they were sending the big book from New York to Akron, and they were writing chapter 5, and most of those guys were atheist and agnostic. They didn't want anything to do with God in the book.
Right.
They send it off to Dr. Bob and to Cleveland, and especially Cleveland and Akron were just the Bible Belt
Yeah.
stuff. They wanted everything to do with Jesus Christ, your personal Savior, and it just, and the fight was on. But Bill, for some reason, whether he had sense enough or was guided, I don't really care. All
Right.
I know is he stepped aside from that moral issue and wrote the inventory based on fact-finding, fact-facing, truthful inventory.
When you back off of the moral issue a bit, you back off of a double-edged sword that, in my case, was slicing my mind to death.
Yeah, because that's
Judge a double-edged sword.
We had someone write in saying, let me quote it real quick. Do you guys think it would have been a big issue to put this paragraph at the very beginning? The paragraph you just read about describing the book. Well, the paragraph that goes, well, that's exactly what this book is about. Objective is to enable you to find a power greater than yourself. And it goes on and on about what this book is about.
I think they do talk that way at the beginning of the book in different ways. But they're first, you got to understand that they're trying to describe what an alcoholic is so you can even know.
They paint the picture first,
Yeah,
and then they tell
yeah.
you, listen, what
Yeah.
we just said, that's what this book's about.
But this stuff is woven through the different chapters in different ways. There's a lot of stuff in chapter 1, 2, and 3 just about describing an alcoholic. But it's just, you know,
Right.
they're setting a stage here,
Yeah.
you know? And I don't know that they intentionally did that. That's just what they did. They just put it together. These guys, they weren't sober very long, man, you know?
And for not being, and there was that era. Look, we utilize the living snot out. This is my guide to life, basically today.
But you got to understand, they were not 20 years old. These men,
they were older,
mostly men. Bill was one of the youngest ones. He was in his 40s. Dr. Bob was 15 years or so older than Bill. And most of those guys are in their 50s and 60s. And you'll notice when somebody, an older person, comes into the program, and you'll see this today. They'll come in, they've been drinking a long time. They may be 60 years old, but they've been drinking a long time. But there's still a wisdom in these people. Granted, they're in trouble with the booze and stuff, but they do have a background in what works and what doesn't work in the sense of life is molded. And it showed you from a beating in different areas that maybe you might want to not do that anymore. And maybe you don't even understand it, but life as it gives you your daily massage, okay?
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter whether you're drinking or not. It doesn't mean you can't have some insights. That's why I so much object to people saying things to newcomers like, well, your best thinking got you here. Like you shouldn't think at all. This is such nonsense. You can't not think. It's absurd.
Yeah.
Life is thought. And to tell a newcomer that everything he ever thought before he came to AA was wrong is just simply
No.
not accurate, and it's aggressive and it's mean. It's an attack on him,
Right.
you know?
I came in here at, I think a lot of our ages were in here at 36, 35, 36. And I've got a ton of experience on how shit didn't work.
Right.
Ton of
And
experience
stuff
on things that did
It
work.
wasn't
Yeah.
everything you did before
Yeah.
you came to AA was wrong.
No. And I don't believe that either. I mean, I believe in saying that. And I still on 2 feet and I'm not mentally challenged. I was able to come in here with quite a bit of experience.
Right, of course.
You know?
And I think if you're, now add another 20 years onto your life from there. So 35, 45, 55, and then 65,
Yeah,
30 years.
these guys,
You're
yeah.
in a different place in life at those points in life. I would never talk to a 20-year-old if I was talking about life. Let's say life, how to live life. I would not talk to a 20-year-old about relationships with women and sex and all that stuff like I would with somebody who's in their 50s.
Right.
They're in a different place in life. You don't, that's why you can't set these standards of how to deal with people. You deal with everybody based on the situation at the time. But we got all kinds of people who don't do that, see? They just got these ideas that are hard, fixed ideas, and they slam everybody with them. And boy, if you don't live the way they want you to live, they'll throw you right out of AA, you know? And there's people like this around our fellowship.
Uh-huh. Yeah, there is.
And it's not that there's a lot of those people, but they're vocal.
Well, yeah, and it doesn't take, it's like a one bad apple situation.
Yes.
Because, yeah, they're at the mountaintop, and they're the ones that can, I don't know, it gets pretty dark, but you can kill people that way.
Well,
Send them back out, or,
Yeah,
like you said, you get a newcomer in here, and someone's jumping down their throat about this, that, and the third, they might never come back.
if I sat here and talked to a new guy off the streets and told him he had to have a moral code of ethics and stuff that would save him, the big book just said we wished we could have. We
Yes.
couldn't do it.
Yeah.
Well, why couldn't we do it? We're out of harmony with love. We just like the cell phone. I can't make the cell phone work if I don't hit certain buttons and understand certain things. But I don't need to understand God to utilize them any more than the cell phone.
Yeah. No, that's how you worded that. That's you when you're talking about your phone earlier, you didn't end that part with what you just said. I don't have to understand God to utilize him.
Right. It's the same thing with the spiritual stuff. If a mere code of morals or better philosophy of life were sufficient to overcome alcoholism, many of us would have recovered long ago. It didn't work that way. So what are we talking about? We're talking about how to align yourself, how to grow spiritually. Well, I thought, and I think a lot of us think, that growing spiritually means I have to line myself up with whatever religion or whatever, and most of the time you don't even like their ideas. So you try and live up to a code of ethics or something that you're really not interested in. This is what happens to teenagers. Now see if this doesn't ring. I was a kid and I was rebelling against stuff. I have never been a status quo guy. I'm still not. I'm not interested in the status quo. I'm really of the mind that if everybody says it's true, it's probably not, okay? Because and the older you get, the more you'll start to see this sort of thing. So I'm a teenager. Now I'm rebelling. I learned how to read and write so fast they were going to put me up a grade in third grade. I never went back to school after that. Fourth grade, I just was crazy. I was out doing what I wanted to do. I could read, I could write, I could do arithmetic enough to get by. And so I wasn't, and I'm not devoid of ability to learn more,
Right.
But maybe not in their setting. So I rejected society, if you will. And there's a number of reasons and things that happened that I just lost respect for so-called 5 years old. Seriously, that people who said that when society was telling us they were experts, I didn't accept it. I just didn't. I don't know why I didn't. It's like I knew something, again, intuition. I didn't have a basis of learning for it, but I knew that there was something wrong with so-called experts. Well, I've come to realize now, I'm 70 years old, that experts don't necessarily know everything, okay? So I was actually right at 5 years old. Most kids, I think, try and fit yourself into a society that's crazy. Our society, if you haven't noticed, is a little bit insane, to say the least, okay? So now you're going to try and fit yourself into a system is crazy. I didn't do that. Most kids either reject it or they try and fit into it. They go one way or the other, right? Most kids,
Yeah.
to some degree. They'll mostly probably try and fit in because they want to be a part of society and the culture.
That's what I did.
I didn't do that. I just didn't care. I wanted to build an empire and be a big shot, but I wasn't trying to be a big shot. I just wanted to be ahead of everybody else.
So did I.
Yeah, just in a different way.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my point of all this literally is just that a code of ethics, that sort of thing, would not have flown. And I think most of us who come into AA are of that rebellious variety. Not all. There's some who tried to fit in and got their butts kicked trying to fit in. But at some point they just said, I can't do this. And then they drink to try and avoid the conflicts and the trouble. This is why we get people who are just off the charts rebellious in different ways. And we got to deal with that. But if you understand and don't try and put this in front of people as a code of ethics or something. No, how about if you look at it this way? Would you like to stop hurting yourself? If I showed you that what you're thinking and doing, is destroying your life and you're losing, wouldn't a guy be interested?
You would think.
Well, if he's not hell-bent on destroying himself, if you could show him that he's actually hurting himself by trying to take from life instead of reversing that and giving to life, if he could learn to give instead of take, he'd gain. It goes against logic. Just for the hell of it, I want to show you. So I'm going to skip up a little bit. I'm skipping up some stuff I probably wanted to read, but because, well, Bill talks about, I just want to read this thing about logic, because there's a thing in here. It's always been important in my mind, because he talks about logic. Okay, it's on page 53. He says, logic is great stuff. We liked it. We still like it. It is not by chance we were given the power to reason, to examine the evidence of our senses, and to draw conclusions. Well, I got to tell you, I've drawn a lot of conclusions from the evidence of my senses that were wrong.
Quite a few.
No, I remember reading, and I'm not a religious guy, that Jesus said you can't judge by appearances. He's talking about your senses. They're lying to you. Your eyes lie. Your ears hear falsely. It's all over the New Testament this way, okay? Okay, so I'm in a little bit of conflict with Bill's, we still like it. It is not by chance we were given the power to reason, to examine the evidence of our senses, and to draw conclusions. That is one of man's magnificent attributes. We agnostically inclined would not feel satisfied with a proposal which does not lend itself to reasonable approach and interpretation. Hence, we are at pains to tell why we think our present faith is reasonable, why we think it more sane and logical to believe than not to believe, why we say our former thinking was soft and, why we say our former thinking was soft and mushy when we threw up our hands in doubt and said, we don't know. Well, I got to tell you, I had to be beaten to admit I didn't know as an atheist.
A guy could say that in a lot of things in his life.
Absolutely.
So how does a guy come to... Go ahead, Jesse.
Well, I was just going to say, I had nearly straight A's in anything I studied. To have a debate about whether I knew, what do you mean? I'll show you I know.
See, he's a big brain guy.
Book smart guy.
He's got to be, generally, he's got a big brain. He's got a logical mind. He just
Brad
does,
with the big brain.
So, how come I end up in the same position? That's just what we read. Just what we read.
Compassion without comparison.
No, what I think
That Doc wrote that on our message here.
Yeah, that's a great idea. What I'm doing is opening up the road about people who come at it from that angle. Because we end up in here too.
We talk about all walks of life.
That's right.
All walks of life come through these doors.
Yeah.
But the guy who comes in with the moral codes and ethics generally hates himself because he's been going against all of those things.
That's a deep one to go down.
I did not come in against those things.
No,
I didn't care about them.
Yeah, and
In this strange way.
you shared that earlier. Being an atheist kind of gave you not a leg up on anyone else, but you didn't have to not reconform.
I didn't have the self-hatred that a lot of people have.
Go ahead.
Well, it's an unlearning. It's an undoing in that sense.
Yeah, I've seen person after person, and I shared a lot about this, that I felt fortunate. I came in here and I said, I don't care what it is, there won't be a roadblock in front of me figuring out how to do this successfully. I didn't care. God, praying, whatever you hear, the 4-step, 9-step. To me, it just wasn't, I wasn't going to allow it to be an issue. time and time again, I've had people on this show, many of people share about their terrible experiences that they've had with religion, that somehow this experience with religion has held them back in figuring out how to find their sobriety through this book. Now, unlearning
Unlearning some of that is what I've done.
time and time again, I hear that from people about
Learning some
know,
of that. And this is so practical because we mix with all these people
Yeah.
that we have all these chances to see differently and to be helpful toward. And who does that help both with?
Yeah, both.
Yeah.
So now, Bill, I'm going back to page 45, at the bottom of page 45. And they're talking about people talking about God. The word God brought up a particular idea, him, and that sort of thing. But at the very bottom, it says, we were bothered with the thought that faith and dependence upon a power beyond ourselves was somewhat weak, even cowardly. We looked upon this world of warring individuals. Yeah, just look out on this world, okay? Warring individuals.
That's valid today.
Warring theological systems. We're fighting over this crap. An inexplicable calamity with deep skepticism. We looked askance at many individuals who claimed to be godly. Oh, yeah. You know, my sponsor, he was a kid. And he was looking at, there was a family. The guy was a priest. And this is how long ago it was. I mean, the guy was whipping his kid. He was a minister with a buggy whip. And he looked at this and thought, that's it.
Right.
If that's what God is, I don't want any. Rejected everything.
Didn't you have an experience like that when you're super young with religion?
Well, what I saw was, we were probably 8 years old. There was a little girl in the neighborhood who came from a religious family, and we used to go to movies on Saturdays and matinee movies, and there were 3, 4 of us, and she could never go to the movies. She could do other things with it, but not the movies. And I found out that her family was religious, okay? Now, I don't care to get into a thing about what kind matter.
But that
But
formula-
what I did at that point, at about 8 years old, was I thought, if you have anything to do with God or religion, and I thought of it, I guess, as God, you can't have any fun.
Right.
Fun is gone.
We had someone named John on this show who shared about his brother committed suicide. He went in the preacher told him, your brother's in hell. From that point on, at the age of 9, he hated religion until he was in recovery. I don't know, a couple years in, that he realized that one experience, he shut himself off for the rest of his life until he realized that that wasn't the big picture. That was just that one experience as a young man.
Right. But you throw the baby out with the bathwater.
There you go.
You don't like one thing and you reject the whole. You know, Joseph, my sponsor, was like this. Even later in life, he had a tendency to throw the baby out with the bathwater. If he didn't like some aspect, he'd lump them all together.
Yeah.
Of course, it softened up.
Is that a character defect of a person, or is that, I mean, what is that?
It's just an ego trait, you know, any way to reject something, or especially if it's something that you really are threatened by, like religion. Same with me. I was threatened by them. Why else would I be aggressive with them? They weren't doing anything to hurt me. Why was I so aggressive against them? I must have felt threatened.
It makes me think of, and this is a touchy one, it makes me think of people like when you hear racists speak. You know, they have one bad experience with one group of people, and all of a sudden, that whole group of people, they lump them. And I'm talking about ignorant people that you'll hear them speak, and I've heard it. I've had friends that way, or I've grown up with people that way, but baby with the bathwater deal, one experience with one group, the whole group, no.
It's a human trait, I think, that does this.
And that's where my question came from was...
some of it is based in some kind of reality of my experience. If I grew up in a neighborhood of let's say, if you want to talk race, I don't care.
Yeah, whatever.
I obviously I'm white, and I hung around with mostly white kids. We weren't against black. I never used derogatory terms for blacks. I just didn't do it.
Right.
It wasn't in my makeup. But if you had a lot of experiences of black guys in high school or something that were pushy at you, you might
Yeah.
think terms. And then when you're walking down the sidewalk and at night and you see a group of them coming, you might be a little more.
We just, before
know.
the show started, I caught
I'm not saying
my-
it's right.
No,
it just is a fact.
But I caught myself doing that, talking about the younger generation. None of these guys, they're lazy and they don't want to come out and get their hands dirty and work. I lumped a whole group of people with my
That's right.
12, 15 different experiences with young guys coming into the trades, wanting to get paid before they work, didn't want to get their hands dirty. So now I just willy-nilly said to him, I'm like, yeah, this younger generation, we're screwed. There's not going to be any plumbers, framers, this, that, carpenters, because they're lazy. Well, why? Who am I to say that? Because of my own personal experiences with a dozen guys. You see where I'm saying?
Well, I
That's
think
why
you can look at a whole series of cultural things. You can look at numbers too with that.
Yeah,
you know.
You're right. There is some way to get some factual information on that. I'm saying I came from a place of just kind of lumping it like that, baby,
All
with
I'm
the
saying is
bathwater.
we all do it, guys. We're all doing this, whether we think we're prejudiced or not. Judging is judging someone before you know them.
And that's why I said, that's my initial question was, is this a character defect?
It's
Or-
a human. I think it's a
a-
human nature. But here's the point now. Now he says we looked askance at many individuals who claim to be godly. See, here's the way you justify your atheism. How could a supreme being have anything to do with it all? And who could comprehend a supreme being anyhow? Yet in other moments we found ourselves thinking, when enchanted by a starlit night, who then made all this? There was a feeling of awe and wonder, and it was fleeting and soon lost.
This is the sentence my sponsor used. Before he knew I wasn't putting up a roadblock, he read this and said, how do you look at the stars and this and that, and not think there's some higher power? He would always quote this sentence.
Yeah. Well, yes, we of agnostic temperament have had these thoughts and experiences. Let us make haste to reassure you. We found that as soon as we were able to lay aside prejudice and express even a willingness to believe in a power, we commenced to get results. Even though it was impossible for any of us to fully define or comprehend that power, which is God. Well, God is a word. It's a name for something you can't understand. Okay? It's a way of putting a word to it. You know, so how does a guy like me, for example, then come to believe? It was not through concepts. It was through experiences. I started because up until I got sober, I really took credit for everything that was good and nothing that was bad. That's just the way it was for me. So I come into AA and I've decimated. My life is it's a mess in every area. Every time I fix something, solve a problem, it gets worse. I became afraid of my ability to deal with anything because I could not solve the problems. This is off the charts. I remember thinking when I was in treatment, I'll just stop doing what I'm doing because it's getting worse. The more I try and fix my relationship with Pam, the less she wants to be with me. Anybody who's had those problems knows what I'm talking about. I just stopped. I knew I had to quit doing something. And I'll be darned if my life didn't start to get better by just stopping. Now, I clearly couldn't take credit then for anything good that was happening. But I could understand, because I'm not stupid, that I'm doing something that's causing all the negative stuff. If you have any intelligence whatsoever and an openness to look, you'll see that. That's what I saw. Then I started to realize that things were getting better and solutions were coming from areas I never could have imagined the solution coming from. I got a better job. I wanted that girl, I got a better girl. Every time I didn't get what I wanted, something better happened than what I wanted to happen. And I started realizing that I'm in the way. How are you going to stay an atheist when something is helping you. In fact, I'm being saved from myself. And I saw this in my early months of sobriety, and clearly, if I could just not force anything, things went very good for me. But you can't do this and just sit in your own head. I had to go out and do 12-step work so that I wasn't manipulating my circumstances. So all I'm doing is running around putting on meetings at detoxes, treatment centers. I mean, a couple months sober. I'm out there actively because I lost the family, I lost the house, I had no life left. So, and it's lifting me out of my depression. So I'm doing it, see? Well, what I realized is problems are solving themselves without my help. In fact, in spite of my help in some cases. Because I couldn't completely do this, but I stopped focusing on my problems and just read the big book to somebody else, go out there and do this stuff. I'm just weeks and months sober doing this. And everything in my life started to take off in a direction I didn't understand, but I didn't care. So I never found a moral or ethical code per se. I guess I did in a sense. I saw that selfishness hurts me. To take from life is going to hurt me. To give to life is going to help. I saw that through putting on the meetings. See? So I just started practicing things, and I'm doing a lot of this right by mistake. But it's working, so I just keep doing it. And I'm still doing it. I never stopped. But my point of all this is, I didn't find a concept of God. I found experiences I couldn't explain away.
You were taking...
I took actions
Yes.
I didn't believe in. I wrote inventory. I was doing this 12-step work. And I got results I couldn't deny.
Yeah.
I couldn't deny the results were good, and I clearly wasn't doing it because all I was doing was focusing on this other stuff, and my relationship with Pam got better. She didn't come back. We didn't stay together, but our relationship changed. And I'm invited to for birthday parties for the kids and Christmas, and I'm not pushed out of the whole scene.
Results you couldn't deny.
Because I didn't try and manipulate her. I didn't try and steal the kids from her.
Get something
You
out of
guys
her.
who do this, I want to give you some. I don't normally give advice, but
I
I'll
want
give you
it.
this advice.
I want it.
And I heard that, and this is my experience. I've seen it time and time again. And this is what I did. Get her to give me the kids. I didn't get her to do anything. I left it alone. And if you leave these women alone, in a very short time, it is so difficult to raise kids by yourself that they will want you to take the kids. But if you try and legally manipulate them into giving you the kids, they'll fight against you because you get the defenses
I think
going.
we all have, anyone who, for myself, when I was done, I don't want any girlfriends. I'm done with women, and just started living my life. Best girl shows up in my life.
Yeah.
It happens. My boss is saying, and it made me think of you. A couple weeks ago, he was telling me, he's like, Tim, just the second I stopped worrying about money, it started
Easy
coming
to
hand
say.
over fist.
Easy to say.
Yeah. I'm still scratching. I mean, I get it. You got bills, this and that, but you quit making money the focus of it, and it's going to start coming more than you can imagine. And it wasn't that I was in there complaining about money, but it just had me thinking about when you share about stuff. Simply said, and it is easy to say, but the practice of it, it's.
This is what I think spirituality is. It's not being good per se. If you try and be good, you'll probably be a jerk. Because you'll be going against people who don't want what you're trying to sell, you know? But what if you're just trying to step away from the selfishness in myself? I'm not trying to be good. I just notice that I'm trying to take. I'm trying to manipulate. If you step away from that, you will just be good. But if you try and be good, you're going to try and direct it and control it. I heard it this way. A good is never so good as when you don't know you're doing good. If you think you're doing good, you'll just build a big ego about it and tell everybody about what a good guy. They had in early AA, they had something called Just for Today. Now, it's up and AA dropped it. I don't know why AA dropped it, but it was originally an AA thing. And it was, and Al-Anon picked it up and put it on a bookmark, which is worth getting. It'd be nice to have them, to hand them out to your sponsees and stuff, because it's wonderful. But there's a number of things. I don't have the bookmark in front of me. I haven't read it for years. But it says things like, I will do something for someone today and not get caught. In other words, if I go around and tell somebody about it,
Right.
then I'm getting caught and not get caught. And if I get caught, then I will do something for, I'll practice this again. I'll do something for someone else and not get caught. And if I get caught, then I'll do something for someone else and not get caught. It was a way of practicing humility
Integrity.
and staying out of, I want something. I want a praise. I want applause. Whatever the hell it is. I want people to praise me. I want people to applaud me.
Yeah, doing something nice to do something nice and not to put it on a billboard.
But you're going to want to put it on the billboard
Yeah.
because we're so insecure.
But the more is that you guys keep doing these actions, the more it becomes the norm. The more you keep.
Well, you don't even think about it.
Yeah, that's what.
You know,
Yeah.
I don't think. I go to the mission every week, Union Gospel Mission.
Yep.
I've been putting a meeting on there for 35 years. Every Tuesday, unless I go to Mexico or something, I'm over at the mission. That's what I've been doing. I'm probably the oldest volunteer now there. Well, I don't tell you that out of pride. It's just a fact.
That's what you do.
Okay. I started doing it because my sponsor was doing it and I was going with him. Now they threw him out. That's a whole nother story. They let him back in a few times. It was just crazy. But he got in trouble with this one gal who was running the program. And of course, because he's going to, in his words, out Christian the Christians. He was a pain to people, man. He just. But anyway, lovely guy though. He really was.
Joe.
Joseph, yeah.
Yeah, you've told many
Yeah.
stories. It sounds like a heck of a guy.
So I'm going over there, and it just works. It helps me to noble. I've schooled myself out of thinking I'm doing anything good. Why? Because if you start telling everybody what a good guy you are, it's just flat. They think you're just arrogant and boasting and prideful, and whether they say that or even acknowledge it, you get a negativity around it, see? I just schooled myself into realizing all I'm really doing when I'm doing these things is helping myself. But what's more important is I think I'm growing spiritually. This is what I think growing spiritually is. And you become more secure rather than insecure. The more I tried to take the credit, the more insecure I got. Read any spiritual teacher, profound spiritual teachers. I don't care what tradition it is. None of them take the credit. Read the mystics, the guys on the edge. Not the mainstream, the guys on the edge. They don't take the credit. They just don't. Jesus never took the credit. How'd you heal him? He didn't say, well, I adjusted him here and I adjusted. He goes, why do you call me good? The Father did the works. He says this all the time in the New Testament. I'm not a religious guy, boy.
Yeah.
I'm just telling you. Boys, I'm not. But this is just the facts of it. When you look at these guys, what was I doing? When good things happened, I took the credit. When bad things happened, I gave it to you.
Yeah, you said that at the beginning too. You brought up something called Just for Today. There's another fellowship that has Just for Today meditation, and every day it's a different reading. They take a quote from the narcotic.
Sure.
the
Yeah,
NA
I know
yeah.
the book you're talking about.
Is
yeah.
this? Do you know?
This is a bookmark actually from Al-Anon.
Yeah.
And it's a different quote daily, or is
No,
it
no,
just
it's
a little
just a
bookmark.
bookmark that has certain things on it that AA had at one point, but
About
Al-Anon picked it up and AA let it go.
There's about a dozen ideas on it.
Okay, so it's okay.
They're just basic spiritual, they're ways of practicing reducing your ego.
When you brought it up, a question came in about it. That's why I brought it up. Is,
Okay,
do you
good.
know, is that where that came from?
It came out of AA's early stuff, and
And
then
then
they
Al-Anon-
dropped it,
okay.
and Al-Anon saw it. And, Al-Anon started in 53, I think, or something. They picked up, the sad part with Al-Anon is they didn't pick up the inventory out of AA, and their inventory became psychological instead of spiritual. It's about figuring things out, and, that's not the way the big book is. But we'll get to that some other time.
Well, we got 15 minutes left. Well, really, we're not on a time schedule anymore. It's however the show goes. We can go as long as we want or as low as we want. It's up to you guys, really. I've left it up to my guests. So there's more that we want to get after. We keep on going. It's up to you boys.
Yeah, well, I just wanted to show some things out of
We've
here.
had great
out of-
feedback. A lot of people are checking in and saying, great, keep it coming. And
Well, we agnostics, okay. Here's what happened to me. Now I'm up on page 53. When we became alcoholics, crushed by a self-imposed crisis, we could not postpone or evade. We had to fearlessly face the proposition. It's in the middle of page 53. That either God is nothing. God either is or he isn't. What was our choice to be? Well, I got to tell you, I did not do that. I just didn't do that. I did these other things, and I started to realize there is a God, but I don't care about conceptualizing it. This conceptualizing it has always been a problem for me.
what do you mean conceptualizing it? Explain that to us.
Well, I have a concept of God. God is Jesus. God is a doorknob. God is the sun. God is the universe. God,
Okay.
None of that could I satisfactorily accept.
Okay.
Okay? What I can accept is that I have no idea. I don't care if I could conceptualize it, it would be pretty limited because I'd have to do it in a mind that has no sense of it. Okay? But I can know it through experiences. I can experience it by aligning myself just like with the smartphone.
Okay. Yeah.
Push certain buttons,
Yep.
learn certain ideas.
Don't have to know what it is to utilize it.
The biggest thing is selfishness. If you're selfish, you're out of harmony with love. You cannot love and be selfish. If you're taking from life, you're going to lose. If you're giving to life, you're going to gain. It's so basic. That's what spiritual growth is.
How long into your recovery did that come to fruition for you?
Well, it's been going all along,
I mean, when were you able to formulate? I don't need a date, but was it within the first 3 months, a year, 5 years?
It was
that you were
through
able to see it the way
experiences
you're
over
seeing
a
it now?
period of time. I mean, a year in, I'm about 9 months sober one time. I'm at a meeting, and I don't know what the hell I was doing, and reading things out of the big book or whatever. And because I'm reading things and quoting things and then talking about my experiences, people think, my God, you're only 9 months sober? Oh, Jesus, I'm getting all these pats on the back crap, And, yeah, just what you don't need, A guy comes up to me. Now, I'm still an atheist, but I've written inventory and I got the anger out of the way and I'm excited about life.
Right.
Now, I was watching Joseph Campbell. Joseph Campbell was a mythologist. He did a series with Bill Moyers on The Power of Myth. Brilliant series. You want to see something great, man. It's great stuff.
The Power of Myth?
Power of Myth. It was done with Bill Moyers back in 87, 86, something like that. I saw those. There's like 6 of them. They're incredible. But one of the things, what the hell, where was I going with that now?
We were talking ego, and then you were talking about the Power of Myth. I did one of these, and then you said about 9 months sober. People were patting me on the back.
Yeah. So
What a hell of a host.
I go to I'm in this meeting and I'm just sharing things and stuff, and a guy comes up. I'm still an atheist. It hasn't completely changed, but I'm having more and more experiences that I just can't make sense out of, you know. There's no logical way I could even understand why this happened, but it was always good. Okay? And the guy comes up to me and he says, he says, will you help me spiritually? Now I'm an atheist still. And I looked at him and I thought, what the heck is going on here? Will I help you spiritually? I don't even believe myself. How am I going to help you It was shocking to me when he asked it because I was caught. And I realized, really, that what Joseph Campbell said about, I was enthusiastic. I had a lot of enthusiasm going for the program and stuff. The word enthusiasm, he said, come from, which meant filled with the gods, would be a definition. Enthusiasm, filled with the gods. Now, there can be a problem with this. You can be very enthusiastic and very unaware of how your enthusiasm looks. And you can become a big jerk with it, too. You'll see that with guys. They'll start beating people over the head with the big book. Very enthusiastic, but they're jerks with it, see? Yeah. But I looked at that and I remembered Campbell, what he said there, you know, filled with the gods. And that's what it is. But you have to watch it and make sure it's tempered a little bit with understanding of how you're coming off. And that doesn't happen overnight. I had to watch myself and see. But that's what it is. This guy saw something in me that I didn't know was there. I was enthusiastic. I was excited. He, will you help me spiritually? I almost laughed in his face when he said it. I don't even believe, you know. I don't remember what I said to him. Maybe I told him that. It's a long time ago, you know.
Yeah. I get.
I don't know what God is. I don't care. I don't need a concept. This happened to Thomas Aquinas. He was the big shot in the church. Okay, he was teaching. I thought he taught into late in his life, but I don't think he lived past his 40s. But anyway, he'd been mouthing off for years in the church about God, talking about God, always talking about God. You know, you see this with ministers.
Billy Graham.
They know all about God. You know, I got a PhD in God. You know, this kind of crap. Some of them can't stay sober either with that stuff. But that's not a put down. You know, it's just a fact.
That was his. Yeah.
But anyway, Thomas Aquinas, he's been talking forever about God, and then one day, and you can read the story about him, depending on who I guess you'd hear it
you
from.
shared this with us, and I did read this, so I'm excited for
so
others
you
to
know
hear.
that what I'm
I know
saying
it. Yep, I know
is
the
accurate.
punchline. Yep.
He has an experience at the altar. Something shifted inside of him. He had some sort of a God experience. And what came to him, or the wording that he said, from what I read, is that he said, he became aware that everything I ever thought was straw. Now, what does that mean? It was not accurate. It was not true. It was straw. It's worthless. And he just shut up. And
he had tons and tons of people listening to him.
I know.
Tons.
He was influencing
like
the whole movement.
Yeah, like a Billy Graham type of.
Oh, yeah.
It was big.
And he shut up.
Yep.
And he didn't talk after that. Apparently, he was let around.
Like
I don't know how long, but. So you can think in the East, they've got some sayings, okay? And I think it's accurate, to, you know. We don't always like the Eastern ideas in our society, but
we're talking far.
I'm talking
India.
Eastern India, the Hindus, the
Yep.
Buddhists, the whatever. And they have a saying that goes like this: those who say don't know. Those who know don't say. That happened to me naturally. I had that Jesus Christ experience. I'm at the putting on meetings at the Union Gospel Mission. Larry B. was the director at the time, And he'd been, I mean, we're talking 30 years, some years ago. He knew I had this spiritual experience, this Jesus grace experience. And he wanted me to talk about Jesus because that's what they do. They're talking about Jesus. I wouldn't do it. I didn't do it because maybe I felt embarrassed. I don't know what it was, but I just didn't do it. Naturally, I didn't want to, you know. But I'd tell the story of what happened. I wasn't embarrassed to tell the story, but I wasn't, Jesus this, Jesus that. I just wasn't doing it, you know. Well, it didn't make any sense to do it because I don't know.
But now with what the
Those
East would
who
say,
know-
you should.
And I was doing that right in my eyes by mistake. Now, you may think that that's not a true idea,
Oh,
but I don't care if you do or not. You don't have to agree with me. But But I did that sort of naturally without even thinking twice. I've never been preaching about God. Early on, I was a little embarrassed by what I was thinking and having experiences of, but I didn't feel the need to always talk about God. Let's talk about the stuff that's hurting us. If you go to a newcomer with the things that are damaging him that he can't see, the selfishness, and show him, not by pointing out all his defects, but you can show him from your own experiences what you did that you failed because of. People are interested in that. But if you get into a moral code of ethics and try and push your religious ideas, people go, whoa,
No, coming
I
at
had
it,
enough of that when I was a kid. I don't want any part, and you'll lose them.
You're talking about coming at him from a we perspective.
Well, yeah, and a street language and a practical language of how life can get better.
Right.
These are just things that I've experienced in my, you don't have to agree with me or like what I'm saying or anything else. It's just things that have come over many, many years of looking at myself and watching how others react to me. The mission has helped me immeasurably with this because I'm over there with 30-some guys who are off the streets. They're in there for 3 to 5 months, and they all got the same kind of thinking, see? Now, I come in with different ideas, and they'll attack you if you can't field their questions or if you're talking smack, you know?
Right.
They are not going to put up with it, and they'll call you out on it. Well, that's happened over the years. I started watching people's reactions to me in the group. I'm watching them. See, these guys help me tremendously. I'm watching them. When I'd say this, oh, they do that. And I stopped going against them. I started looking for what they said that was true. Don't fight against what they said that was wrong. They may hate AA. Don't fight against, try and prove AA or anything to them. But look at certain things they said that was true and work with that. And I took me out of conflict with them. And they started to hear me instead of being an ass and going against them. And they taught me how to communicate by my watching their reactions. I had to watch myself to see how they were reacting to me. Now, myself because I was going to look and say, well, they don't like how I am or something, and then I'm going to cater to their craziness. That's not it. No. Just watch how people react to your own way of communicating, and you'll see things that you're doing that aren't helpful. And if it's not helpful and you're getting people's defenses up, you don't want to do it in a setting like that. So you just observe yourself. And I've doing this for 35 years. Even a blind squirrel gets a nut once in a while, you know. So, it's just the way it is, guys. I don't know. I've had these people have helped me so much. I have nothing but gratitude for that place. The guys, the lunatics, probably more than I ever helped them, you know.
Yowzers. Oh, so how long are you gone for? You said you're leaving town next week?
Yeah, for a week.
Oh, so you guys, we haven't even scheduled our future dates.
Jesse will be around for the workshop and stuff.
All right, so 4-Step Workshop, which does take place here at 2218 every Wednesday at 6:30 in the auditorium. There's a banner floating across the bottom of the screen that talks about it. It's the 4-Step Workshop. And As always, the Alano Society Minneapolis vision is to be the premier Alano clubhouse, serving the greater Twin Cities that offers support and strength to those who suffer from addiction and their families. Your recovery,
Suffer from their addiction and their families. We're suffering from our families.
Oh, shit. Yes. I mean, I know it's
Kind of a weird way of saying that.
Yeah, Alano Clubhouse serving the greater Twin Cities that offer support and strength to those who suffer from addictions and their families. That's exactly. You know what? Give me 2 seconds. Let's see if that's how it is really written. Now that's me rewriting it on here. So it says to be the premier Alano Clubhouse, serving the community by offering support, strength, and hope to those seeking recovery. And
that sounds a little better.
Yeah, so I got to correct my. I've been reading that for 8 months, boys. You just now corrected it.
You know what I've learned to do? Listen. I've learned to listen to myself, and I've learned to listen to others. So I'm not trying to be a jerk here.
No, thank you for listening.
But I heard that, and I thought, what?
I've been telling people this club's going to help them how to deal with their family. All right, well, thank you, boys, for that. Yowzers. Own your recovery, own your life, fight for yourself because you are worth it. And if you're struggling, please reach out. We understand mental health. We understand things can get real out there. So if you are struggling, my phone number up here, other people have messaged. Use this platform to network. Do what you can for yourself. There's plenty of meetings here at 2218 throughout the week. Ooh, wheezy teasy. Maybe a guy should quit smoking, huh?
I don't go that far.
Yeah, no, that might get healthy. We do have noon meetings every single day of the week here at 2218. It's a noon meeting we have here. So if you're looking for meetings, there's meetings throughout the day here of all different fellowships. The dances are back here at 2218. We've got a Valentine dance coming up. So grab your sweetheart and come on down, or come on down by yourself and find a sweetheart. And I'm talking about those little candies. Saturday, February 11th, from 9 p.m. till midnight. $5 at the door. And as always, New Way alum and New Way clients, come on down. You are covered. You're paid in full for you. Just sign in and you are available to come in and get your groove on. That is Saturday, February 11th at 9 p.m. Ride for Recovery is coming up in a few months. It is the last Saturday of June, as every year. This club could use some volunteers for that event. So if you're interested in being part of the Ride for Recovery, contact me, please, and we'll get you all fixed up and ready to ride.
If you want to help yourself,
get involved. You heard us talk about it all night long. And the other thing I wanted to talk about was Jane, the queen in the kitchen. She is the one who cooks the delicious meals here at 2218. No longer on Fridays. It is on Saturdays. So come on down for $7. You're going to get a hearty meal. Tomorrow night, we've got homemade bean and ham soup, cornbread, soup crackers, Jell-O, cake or brownies, ice cream, cookies, water or coffee. And then the following one is, we'll talk about that next week. But come on down here. We've got plenty of food for you. We are graduation too, so keep that in mind. Anything else I'm forgetting, boys? I think that's that. 2218. Come on down. Volunteer some time.
If you want to start a group,
yes,
come down, you can start a group. We got plenty of rooms open.
Yes,
you know?
Not 24. There's plenty. Yes. If you want to start a group, come on down, or you can reach out to myself, or come on down to the front desk, and they'll get you in touch with someone. We do have plenty of spots. I believe right now we're available to house any size meeting at basically any time too. And if you become a member of this club, you have other opportunity for coming down here, meet with your sponsor on other hours. and utilize the club. So become a member of this club if you'd like. And also, we have Valentine's cards here. Did you guys see that down there?
No.
Yeah, we've got probably 100 different cards to choose from. Very affordable. We've got, I think it's like 3 for $5 or something. I might be wrong on the price, but they're good old, they're nice professional like Hallmark cards. So come on down and grab yourself a Valentine's card if you just want to hop in for a good deal on Valentine's cards. But yes, this club, part of saving my life. It can be part of saving yours too. Again, if you're struggling, please do reach out. Jesse, what are you grateful for?
Well, grateful for this podcast, of course.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, and way to go for keep tuning it up and making improvements on it.
I've been piping about this upgrade for 8 months, and I finally took control of that. Rick, what are you grateful for?
You know, I'm just really grateful for AA. I'm grateful. I used to be negative toward treatment centers and things in my early recovery because they weren't teaching AA and all that crap. And a lot of guys will fall into that trap. I did, you know. But, you know, I'm so grateful that they let us come in and put meetings on too, you know, because what we're doing when we go into is we're actually teaching against their best interests, because without the clients, AA really doesn't need a treatment center,
right?
You know? And they're letting us come in, and it's actually we're teaching against the treatment center.
Yeah.
You know, so it's not in their best interests for us to.
I agree with that. I always said that about newcomers. Like I always feel bad how I utilize a newcomer because that helps me. Like if they stop coming, my thought process is real goofy on that one. But like it's sad to see a newcomer come in here broken as they can be, but there is some light at that tunnel. But I use them for remembering how bad it was sometimes. It's just woohoo. Hey, Eric, who are you and what are you grateful for?
Eric, alcoholic.
Hey, Eric.
I'm just happy to be able to wake up sober, remember the nights before, and have the clarity of mind to be able to always handle my business. So even during the downside of winter with the work I do, still have jobs coming in, and it's always good.
Good.
Well, thank you, boys. I really appreciate the time you guys have given me in the show. Please tune in next week. We have got, I know I'm hitting the wrong buttons around here. Next week, we have a group of people coming in here, I think about a half dozen, 20 minutes at a time, talking about, I think there a bunch of people are celebrating some clean time and getting some medallions on the show. And
Where are they from?
a lot of them are from this club.
From the club?
Yep, from here. And a couple past guests that have been on the show that I know they've held positions here. There's about, like I said, a half dozen. I'll be celebrating some time. Jess, I think Judy, Mark, and Eric, and Matt, I believe we got coming on. We got an abundance of different people, kind of like a little hodgepodge of people coming on the show. So it'll be a busy show next week. And then the week after that, we got Sawana coming on, both returning guests. And it's going to be great. So tune on in. And as always, if you have any ideas for the show, any ideas for the Ride for Recovery, you want to be on the show, you want to be part of Ride for Recovery, you want to be part of this club, come on down, reach out to me directly, whatever the case is. You are welcome here. With that, we are going to say adios.